Hey folks, this is Dr. Emily Sherning with American Resiliency. Next week, we're dropping the national overview video. This week, I thought it might be a good idea to share some thoughts about location and resilience. Because, of course, I focus on climate projection information here on this channel, but the climate outlook is not the only factor you should consider as you decide where and how you want to live in these times of change. As I've been doing this fairly fine-toothed analysis, making detailed outlook videos for every region and state in the US, I don't often say the phrase survivable territory, but I will say that's the phrase that comes into my head when I'm doing the work. I tend to say instead in adaptation range on account of that sounds less nuts and scary. But that is the first pass that I consider in my decision making is do I think people could survive in those projected conditions? And I will say that is the core kind of up down I'd encourage you to make as you consider the outlook for your home. Do projected climate conditions at the location fall within the general boundaries of conditions where humans have lived? We're a pretty adaptable species, but we have biological limits. When you think about peoples who live and have lived in some of the more extreme environments of our planet, such as the Bedouin and the Hopi, you're talking about peoples with specialized skills. I'm going to make an assumption that most of us here do not have those skills. Let's talk for a minute. When we look at the national outlook, where are the edges? Where are those limits of survivability emerging? Parts of the American Southwest are heading into projected conditions that fall well beyond the current extremes of contemporary desert living. They're heading beyond projected conditions that have a solid analog to places where peoples have lived. When we look at even lower end, like 1 to 3 foot sea level rise projections, there are parts of the Northeast that are very vulnerable to extensive damage to infrastructure and the built environment. Now, that water is not going to come up in a great wave. It's likely to creep up from below. So that's not likely to kill you directly if you were to, say, walk away slowly. But that water is going to push population movement, both regionally and nationwide. So it's a factor to consider. A final challenge point. When we look at the Southeast, I think that you folks in the Southeast, you really have to size up how you feel about your current hot season and then decide how you feel about adding another month onto that hot season with this level of humidity we're experiencing in 2025. Take that in with the lousy reality that more inland hurricane action is anticipated in Georgia and the Carolinas. This is an area that's already dealing with a more intense extreme rain outlook in parts of those states than we see in other parts of the nation. So those are your biggest big picture risk. There's no location where there's no risk, where there is no change. There are locations that are lower risk, where we're looking at lower rates of change projected. But here's something important that I think we need to be keeping in view. The vast majority of America falls into what I would consider survivable territory, into what I would consider within adaptation range. What will make the difference, what will make a future possible in the places that we love, is not just the climate outlook. It's our actions and the actions of our communities. The local culture, the local response to change or lack of a response to change, the way people on the ground have been shown to respond to disaster. These are all critical community elements that should be weighed as heavily as any incoming hazard information as you make decisions about your life in this time of change. Let's say you live in an area where the outlook isn't great, but it's not terrible. Like, say, around Kansas City. Place you're going to need to do some stuff, but you're within adaptation range. If I'm living in a place like that and I was pretty confident that my house wasn't in a flood zone or emerging flood zone, if I had a good social network there, friends and family I cared about and relied on for mutual support, that would tilt me towards staying in a place that didn't have like super great climate outlook. If I liked my utility companies there, if I felt they were making good response moves, that'd tilt me towards staying. And I'd think hard about what happened the last time there was a real disaster. When I decided to accept the job that brought me to Iowa in 2011, one of the reasons I was interested in Iowa was related to my experience in Hurricane Katrina. When I was evacuating from New Orleans, I witnessed and participated in spontaneous mutual aid. The same was true when I came back to help with the recovery. I came to help clean up the Tulane Medical School. But we all know a picture of mutual aid is not the whole picture of what emerged from Katrina. In Katrina and the aftermath, there was a lot of violence. People lost their lives. When I came back to the city, and I was back pretty early, as soon as they were letting civilians back in as part of the Tulane cleanup effort, when I came back to the city, there were very few women in the city. And for a while there, more than 90% of the people in the city were men. I've always enjoyed walking alone and observing the world, but I didn't go walking alone at that time. The conditions were obviously unsafe. I went to my home to work, and other times I went escorted. It was wrong feeling. It felt like an unkindness to a system already well beyond the point of strain to put myself at any additional risk. And it was a evidently risky, obviously unsafe situation. And I want to be clear. No men were creepy and nasty to me in this city of men throughout that whole strained time. What I'm expressing isn't a condemnation of men who were there to fix a city or a condemnation of women who no doubt had their hands completely full in less hazardous areas. What I'm expressing is my experience in a culture experiencing intense distress, a culture pushed to extremes, and my sense of being out of place in that culture. That was in 2005. In 2008, when I was at Arizona State University doing my graduate work there, Iowa had a big flood, a really big flood. Like most of the eastern part of the state flooded. All the cities flooded at the same time. The scale of the disaster was widely compared to Katrina in the national news. I was very moved by the coverage I saw of this disaster, the community spirit, the cooperation, the sharing, the fact that women were evidently involved in the community response at every level. That this was a culture that could hold together in a way where reasonable families didn't fear for the personal safety of their wives and daughters, even when things were at their worst. That impressed me. When I saw that coverage, I really dove into it. I watched a lot of interviews. Everyone I saw, there's the fighter, I thought. There's the fighter I want to see. Everyone I saw, I felt I saw a different face of a culture that called to me. When I had the opportunity in 2011, I thought to myself, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that culture. And in 2020, I had the opportunity to be involved in another Iowa disaster because we were here during the 2020 derecho show. And at that time, let me tell you, I saw that fighter emerge again. The ferocity of the response, the coordination of the response, immediate at the community level. Neighbor helping neighbor, Iowan helping Iowan, with no mind to color, to creed, or to political affiliation at a time when that was really hot. The ferocity, the immediacy of the response, the visceral drive to get aid to the worst impacted communities, up to Tama, east to Cedar Rapids. What congregation did not have water on the way to those communities as soon as the roads were clear? And what community didn't have people out clearing the roads? Not like county workers, just regular guys manning any vaguely applicable equipment that they could drive out of the shed as soon as the winds had passed. When you're thinking about place, it's good to think about how have people responded to disaster before? Do they know disaster? Because we're going to see disaster. Me, I like a fighter. I know Iowa's got plenty of problems. I'd like to hear what place doesn't. But we've got a shot in the outlook. Iowa's got a shot, and I know my people have what it takes to run on a wet track. Because I know we have what it takes to run together. And not every culture or every community has the same kind of spirit. There's a lot of different ways to make this run. I'm not sure that every community in the US has the spirit it's going to take to make the run. I hope we do, but I'm not sure. I like to be in a place where I feel that spirit. That's something I'd recommend you look for when you think about where to go. Optimizing the outlook, it only gets you so far. The rest is people. You got to be with people you want to be with in hard times. I know there are plenty of folks out there listening who struggle with a certain amount of analysis paralysis, thinking hard about finding the right place, what's the safest place to land, really putting a lot of time and energy into optimizing from the data, wanting that to keep them safe. But no one's really safe in this world, my friends. There's only degrees of risk. If you're in your home, if you know your home in your heart, if there's a margin worth calling, I wanted to make this video to say it's okay to make a stand. Location is a question of where you want to make your stand, because we're all going to need to make a stand. There's no way to shield yourself completely from what's coming. There's no such place as climate-proof Duluth. It's a marketing fantasy. Duluth's up in the band of fire, where we see extremely strong emerging wildfire risk. You may gather from the vast majority of the content I produce, I care a lot about the data. I'm profoundly interested in seeing what information we may gain, what guideposts we can find to help us brace up for the times of change ahead. But before next week's Data Palooza, I wanted to put out this message. The head only gets us so far when we're trying to make a wise, sound, generationally minded decision. When we're thinking resilience, we also need the heart. And communities, they don't stay strong because we give up on them and withdraw from each other and focus on ourselves and what we aspire to control. They stay strong when we give to each other, when we play together, and when we know each other as people. Next week, if you're in adaptation range, and the vast majority of us are, don't take that information in by itself. That's a starting point. Use it as a starting point. Think about the people around you. Think about how your community responded to the last disaster. If you're considering moving, learn about what your destination community did the last time things went really wrong. Learn about it. Find out if you've got a fighter. Kind of fighter who makes you want to get your shoulder in there too. Folks who follow along with me, I hope this message gives you some context, an approach that's useful to you as you make decisions about your life. Resilience isn't about perfection. It's about what's inside that stays when things are bad. What's the stable core, the place you can hold on, place that lets you bounce back. That's going to be different for different people. That's okay. That's how life should be. Different places, different cultures, they got the right fit for different people. We know in our hearts when we are home. And some of you listening, maybe you haven't felt the pull of that yet. That hook in the heart of belonging, of being in the right place. But it's real. That's a real thing. And it's something that matters. And I don't know that the data helps us find that. So please think about it. Where is your heart drawn? And please, when you listen to me, understand this is what lies beneath my reasoning. Not search for perfection or hope of escape. How to protect our homes and our communities. That's what fuels my deep comb of this information. That's what fuels my search through the projection information. That's why I comb it as carefully as a woman might comb out knits from her daughter's hair. And I do hope that what I find will be of use to you. I encourage you to take another step towards resilience today. And I do look forward to talking with you all again soon. Folks, thank you all for spending some time with me today. I, of course, want to thank everyone who makes this work possible. But first, I've been told I have to let you know that AIR is now putting out a quarterly newsletter. Here's what to do to get signed up. You go to our YouTube page. There's some links Oh, there's the link tree. So we click on that, you scroll down a little bit, mailing list. Just put your email in there and hit the arrow. Let's get going on some thank you slides here. Well, I explained that the purpose of the quarterly newsletter is educational, to give you a summary of any particularly notable climate and Earth system updates or content you may have missed. I am not going to spam you with daily emails. The thought of writing a newsletter more than quarterly grosses me out, and it has taken more than 2 years for other members of the AR team to strong arm me into agreeing to write one on a quarterly basis. I don't know about you. To me, there are a few annoyances more bothersome than daily empty communications from causes I care about. I receive them and I'm like, why are you putting staff time into this nonsense? And why are you wasting the money I send you on mailing campaigns that just make more garbage for me to throw out? So I assure you that while I have been made to behave to a certain degree, my interest in business as usual communications is not just quite low, but in the negatives. I will write you quarterly, and maybe if there's something going on where, like, I really need your help or I don't want you to die, and that's it. And thank you very much to everyone who makes the work here at AR possible. Our donors, our volunteers, everyone spreading the word online, and everyone doing the work on the ground. You all are the reason I don't have to do things business as usual. You all are the reason I can focus my time and energy on our mission rather than engaging myself fully in the cargo cult activities that make up the modern cultural discourse of running a nonprofit. I love it that I get up and I work for you. Thank you so much for giving me this chance, and I'll look forward to talking with you all again soon.